Do you think when it comes to, so you've mentioned code, we got that, go ahead and do your productive code. How important do you think are the non-code things in a take-home project? And I'm speaking things like testing. I'm thinking things like commenting your code or writing documentation around the code. Everything that's not directly code. How important is that in a take-home test?
Yeah, so think about this with take-home tests. You're in a competition, right? You're competing for the spot. I know a lot of people like to, kumbaya, we're all on the same team, but at the end of the day, when you're going for that job, like you're competing. So I've never done any testing for my take-home projects, and I've always passed them. However, I would not recommend that. I would do as much as you can possibly do, right? If that's adding tests, cool. If that's adding documentation, even better. All you're doing is just making yourself stand out even more. That can backfire. Let me put out that disclaimer, because oftentimes when you get these take-home tests, they'll say, hey, please only take 2 to 4 hours on this or 3 to 5 hours on this. And if it's clear you spent a week on this thing, they may not know how to judge your project, right? Because they were looking to see what you could do in that kind of short amount of time. So there's a balance there of, putting in all the extra credit versus not going too far with that. But to answer your question bluntly, the more you can put in there to demonstrate your ability, in my opinion, the better.
So recently, Matt Ricketson from the SwiftUI team tweeted out that they're hiring someone for SwiftUI right now at Apple, which of course you're writing Swift all the time, which is nice at Apple, working the cutting edge of Apple's frameworks, which is awesome. And he made it clear in his tweet, our test is a GitHub-based take-home test. And I would so love to see that test. I don't apply for the job. I can't move to Cupertino. I've got family here in the UK, sadly. But not sadly family, sadly moving. And I'd love to test so badly. And I actually tweeted back saying, I hope tests form part of it. And Kyle Maycomer, also ex-SwiftUI, said yes, they do. So Apple clearly have, write some code in SwiftUI, but also write tests and something else around it. I don't know how long it takes though. Do you get a week? Do you get 3 hours? 3 hours for a take-home test. That's fast, right?
Yeah, that's not long at all. In my take-home course, I talk about that as like you're typically only going to get 3 to 5 hours. However, in this course, we're going to spend a long time on this because it's educational. I want you to see everything. But what I would recommend with this small time period, if you can't, you just don't have the time to do stuff, definitely make a note either in the comments or maybe make a paragraph in your email saying, if I had more time, I would have done this. I would have properly handled all the errors. Right. If I had more time, I would have implemented this, and this test. Right. So even if you can't do it, tell them what you would have done. Right. Like, I think that's a key thing too.
That, folks, bears repeating. If you run out of time, just tell them what you would have done. That's a killer point there from Sean, because you will run out of time. You can't do everything. It's not a 1 month long take-home test. We've got actual lives to leave here. When you run out of time, just tell them where you would go next. And maybe that's writing tests. Maybe it's refactoring your table view delegate. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's polishing the design. Tell them where you would have gone. Because it shows you have the foresight to plan ahead, and that you knew time restrictions were critical, because that's also the case in production. If you have a year to make a great app, awesome. Often you have 3 months. And then you'll say, okay, what do I cut back here to make my thing ship? And what I would have done to do further was this.
And you're also setting yourself up, because usually the next part of the take-home project is like, cool, you submitted it, now let's talk about it. So when you mention that this is what I would have done in the future, on the second phase of that interview, now you know what the conversation is going to be like, pretty much, because they're going to be like, oh, you would have done this test? Tell me how you would have done that. Oh, you would have refactored this way? Let's talk about that. Why this way and not that way? Because there's always a conversation about your project afterwards. So be prepared for that too.